June 12th meeting of the Isle of Palms Planning Commission and acknowledge that the press and public was duly notified in accordance with state law. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our last meeting. Do we have any comments or motions?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion now? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So it passes unanimously. So, new business. Discussing the recommendations for political signs and public rights of way. Douglas?
Yes, so this is coming to you all from council, really. Usually it's kind of the other way around where you all work on recommendations and send it to them. This is an initiative that came really, I guess, as a result of the last elections referendum, the number of signs that went out in the public right-of-way spurred some conversation about the fact that our ordinance allows, it kind of has a 30-day window where political signs are allowed in the public right-of-way. I would say, kind of summarizing the discussions at council level, they bubbled the issue up. There was a little bit, there was some good dialogue about the pros and cons of allowing it. They found out, kind of in their research, that we are really the only community that was allowing it. You know, I think we see them elsewhere, but I think they're not legal. But we're the only kind of neighboring community that allows it. And then the other thing that came to light is that the state code doesn't allow it. And state road rights-of-way, which almost all of our road rights-of-way are. So I think those two issues kind of led them to initiating a recommendation, and they're down a path of prohibiting political signs in the public right-of-way. So that, because that section is housed in the zoning section of your code, of our code, all zoning changes, any zoning text change by statute comes through this group for recommendation. Otherwise, because it's something council has kind of expressed their own interest in doing, it might not have come to you otherwise, but because it is a zoning code, this part of the sign code, it is here before you all for a recommendation. And that's really it. The political signs will still be allowed, obviously, in private property. So, you know, it will be a different kind of dynamic to how they get installed. Now, just a political candidate can just go put them anywhere in the public right-of-way. It doesn't matter if they have the support of the adjacent person, anything else, could put them anywhere. This will change that in that it will only be able to go in private property limits.
Quick question on the second page, that second paragraph, number 1, no more than one sign, blah, 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 blah. At the end, it talks about the open house signs may be placed on the shoulder of a street right-of-way between the hours of 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. on Saturdays, Sundays, and city legal holidays. Has that been in place?
Yes. So yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the bulk of this, what's in your packet, is the existing code, and you can see what's redlined are the changes.
Okay.
So yeah, that section's not changing. It's just subsection D, political signs on, it does say currently public rights of way, and it's going to be changed to private property only may be erected. And then there's a second section where subsection 14, prohibited signs.
See, I already told Steve, I was like, it might go on. So kind of looking at this, where I guess I thought our thing is make sure this is compatible with the rest of the ordinances. So going back in our current ordinance, 54136 sign regulations for SR 1, 2, 3, and PDD districts, basically says residential use, non-commercial signs not exceeding 8 square feet in the area and 5 feet in height are allowed. So political signs I would think would fall into the category of non-commercial signs.
Right.
So that's basically, so that paragraph saying I can put a political sign in my yard anytime I want to.
Well, I think,
The 30-day limit doesn't apply to political signs currently placed in people's yard because it falls under that residential sign allowance. And so
Yeah.
I think the intent behind this was right, but when they changed this paragraph now to say temporary signs having a 30-day limit, it's in conflict with the one that says I can have them at any time.
Yep, I think you're right.
So
So if you were to say,
so if you just strike paragraph D in its entirety, because we already say you can't put signs in the right-of-way, that last section. Let's see, which one was,
well, I think it raises the question is the intent, if you wanted to put a sign out there today for the presidential election, I think your point is, if it's on your private property, you can.
Right.
The way this has been drafted, you wouldn't be able to do that, and or you'd have a conflict. One
you
section
have a
would say you could,
conflict
one
of
Yeah.
whether you,
which side do they want to resolve the conflict towards?
yeah.
So then maybe you reference in the old ordinance, 136 that you're referencing, that, except for, whatever this is.
But I don't think,
Paragraph D.
I kind of like striking.
So it's,
so my,
you're-
so my,
so would it be this group's preference? So you got two different ways you can recommend, I think. Either to allow them at any time, and at that point you strike the section that you raised. I'm sorry, if you wanted to allow them at any time, you would strike paragraph D
in its entirety,
in
which,
its entirety, or you could say, no, we only think that a presidential sign should go up 30 days prior to the presidential election, and then you would strike the other section.
well, yeah, then you're kind of getting into the definition between
Right.
temporary and permanent sign. If I just want to put Trump sign in my yard, not reference an election, why can't I?
do we have one of those on Waterway Boulevard?
Yep. You have a
Yes.
couple of those
In
out
like
there,
20
too.
seconds, I
And-
think.
I guess it could have been
So-
any candidate, but,
I think the safest would be.
but I think
this
the
way.
intent behind council was to just focus on the right-of-way. So if you just struck paragraph D, we already prohibit them in the right-of-way. This is the paragraph that historically had allowed them.
Right.
So by taking out that allowance, now they're back to
Yeah.
being prohibited. So that was just kind of the,
And is a bumper sticker a sign?
huh?
Is a bumper sticker a sign? And if you're driving on the public roads, are
Well,
you?
that's addressed in here too, on the side of a vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just when I went through it was. there was
David, what was the,
five-
what is the section that allows permanent signs?
54136, paragraph A.
Okay, okay.
But then there's things that, in commercial zoning, which, I mean, again, I don't think our intent was to limit political signs in commercial areas on commercial property.
So,
So I think,
do we leave, so in the prohibition now we've added including political sign
I mean, that's just I mean, there's nothing wrong. It's just an iteration to
Yeah.
say,
including.
we say all signs, including,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Strike the
David's
paragraph.
recommendation, and it sounds like at least Suzanne is there, to
Mhm.
delete D altogether.
Right.
yeah.
Then it makes it a lot less messy.
Just so I'm clear, this is deleting paragraph D in the, what,
In the
what city council
proposed-
has already proposed.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, this would be an amendment
gotcha.
to their
How,
ordinance.
how are they addressed in, how is it additionally addressed then if we delete D? I'm not sure I fully.
So, under the prohibited signs, the last paragraph,
Okay.
14, signs within a public right-of-way, beach, or public access
Including.
Okay,
are prohibited, period, unless authorized by the city or state. And basically paragraph D was that authorization from the city. So if you take it away, you can't put signs up.
Right.
Does that make, that was the way I read it again, kind of.
Can you reread 54136A?
5, 4.
I guess I want to be sure that somebody wouldn't say a
Okay, so
temporary.
the sign regulations for SR 1, 2, 3, and PDD districts. Residential uses, non-commercial signs not exceeding 8 square feet in sign area and 5 feet in height are allowed.
Doesn't say permanent, doesn't say temporary, anything
Anything.
less than 5.
Thing I like about D is it addresses specifically, if you're a politician, you're looking at the sign ordinance that says political campaign signs.
But 14 says the same thing.
Well,
Signs in the right of
but the
way,
difference
including
would be,
political.
Sandy, that this would really only allow those signs for 30 days. Where the existing permanent sign restriction allows it indefinitely.
Okay,
And there is a definite
so a wraparound.
Yeah,
wraparound there.
Well, again, I got a simple, it's all right here in one paragraph. So now you have to look in two different places for how to do it. That's just, I don't know that simple people like me are gonna know to look through the whole ordinance like that. I thought D was very explicit to the point, and my suggestion would be that we add
It's, and you're
a
kind of
couple of
eliminating
words.
any,
Yeah, I'm looking, what do I do? I'm a politician, I wanna run. What can I do? Oh, I can't do D. Got it. Otherwise, you're kinda, all right, where is it?
And D was good about cleaning up the signs that were in our right-of-way. Now, I think about
Yeah.
this.
30 days, 2 days.
The ones I
after.
always
But
see
it's not.
is at Palm Boulevard at 41st, because I got a stop sign there. And they're always right there in the right-of-way, which they'll just move onto the fence with permission, so they'll still be there. But then you get here to the Mayor Satilli intersection. And, that's where it's often cluttered with, public right-of-way signage, which will disappear because unless you get,
Well, 14 says that.
But it's not as,
but the nice
Just
thing is
takes
that
them all out of
they have to
public
clean it
right-of-way.
up 2 days later, which is the nice thing,
yes.
but
after.
if you can't put them there to begin with, you don't have to
Right,
worry
you don't
about
have to
cleaning
clean
them
'em
up.
but I think
Well,
back
but
to
they
your
will still
point.
be out there. They'll just be on private property. Like I said, that fence on 41st Avenue.
So you're thinking the 30 days should be applied to a private property also?
Yes, it is
Or a
in here.
political sign.
The way I
But
read
that's
this.
that's the difference, so there would be no time limit. Kind of if we delete
Right,
D,
yeah.
there's no,
No, this,
Right.
that's why I'm saying, this is very
And
concise
some of
to
those
the
other
point,
signs
and
are
you
probably business
eliminate the
signs,
signs.
contractor signs, subcontractor sign, realtor sign. And those are regulated where you can put your rental for rent signs. Not
But
supposed to
that
be-
goes back to, the
Right.
other regulation says if it's non-commercial, political signs would be non-commercial, correct? I can have them at any time. So I've got a conflict, one saying I can have them at any time, and one saying I can only do it for 30 days.
but we started this conversation.
yeah.
Do you want to resolve the conflict
I would like
in
to add
favor of?
accept political signs.
Okay, so that would be the,
And then
yes.
keep D because of the time limits in it, and it's right there, political campaign signs. Easy
So-
to find.
So we're gonna, and I don't know what the legal solution here is though, but just a Trump flag, is that a political campaign sign?
say
And is
about
that,
the
did we now just make that illegal?
Yeah, that's the other,
Well,
that, you know.
And that will
Yeah.
then
freedom of
morph
speech.
into the US flag,
The
the
Confederate.
Gadsden
yeah.
flag, flying upside down or right side.
Instead of Trump flag, could also be a Biden flag.
Well, anybody's flag. What about
Anybody's
Nancy
flag.
Mace? Apparently
Nancy
she
Mace's
lives out here. Can she have her name on the mailbox without? I just have a hard time believing our city politicians don't want to be able to advertise for their elections in those right-of-ways that have been so popularly populated.
Well, I,
Yeah.
I'd rather they just
I'm
clean
back to
up,
David.
give them 30 days and,
I'm back to
So this
David.
becomes
They're
another,
not-
well, this becomes another issue if you're talking about the clusters of signs.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to put more than 8 square feet of signs in your yard as a
Right.
residential. So if
pick
you,
your candidate, because
so you can pick your candidate, yes.
You can't get the whole block of candidates unless they put together one of their little block
Right,
signs.
so you're not gonna have those big clusters, again,
Right.
they
It's
could,
just a noise pollution.
yeah.
Where do you read it that way? Political signs shall not exceed.
Just the public
He's-
sign.
And
No,
it's
the-
plural.
he's going back
political
to
signs.
any-
Going back to the original ordinance.
136.
The
Any
original,
sign.
all right.
not exceeding
I don't
8
have
square
that.
feet in area, and
I
5 feet
think-
in
I
height.
think
Which is
that's
also
each.
written in D as
Huh?
well.
I think that's each.
Yeah.
It says signs in this
Political
one.
signs, yeah.
Read 136.
Non-commercial signs, plural, not
Yeah.
exceeding 8 square
Wow.
feet in area.
I'm thinking if I own Island Realty's property, I can put all the signs I want on my property.
Right.
No,
With my permission.
no, there's other ones that deal with that.
With,
There's other signage ordinance to deal with.
There's
that.
other signage ordinance that deals with that. I mean, this thing's like, how we're, 5, 6 pages long. Yeah, and I did not print those sections out, but on commercial properties, this was just residential. The whole section on commercial goes into the maximum allowed square footage of all the signs.
Building mounted and
Right.
freestanding.
Yeah, it's way detailed.
And what about naming of houses?
That's kind of what we've always felt like the 8 square feet. Somebody says,
And-
Seashell
Hacienda,
Cottage or.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one across the street, the Vision House, with the builder's logo in the middle of it, and that thing's
I
at
know
least,
this was gonna get
at
silly.
least 8 feet wide, and
I don't
3
know.
feet tall, 2 feet tall.
It's a contractor sign?
Only if you recognize the logo.
What house is it? What's it called?
Division.
The Vision House, and you know what street I live on. I'm not pouncing on the guy, but it is,
The
when
Vision.
you're a rules guy like
Yeah.
I am, and you see that blaring across the street, and you're, stinking,
Well, then you better
Commissioner.
change your company logo to be more.
I don't advertise. I barely get a permit sign box.
So I think you have two choices here. You either strike D or you leave D and modify 54136A to say
Excluding commercial.
excluding
political.
or excluding political
Exclude.
signs, see section, subsection D. One of those changes has the effect of allowing, if you strike D, you could put a political sign in your yard at any point for as long as you would want it. And to Sandy's point, it gets a little bit hidden in the weeds of the ordinance. If you go the other option and amend 54136A to point you to D, it's brighter line, but it's kind of taking away a pre-existing kind of right that property owners have now of putting a sign out there that on their private property way ahead of 30 days prior to an election.
Yeah, because I know some of the people running will put signs out on private property well before they start putting them in the right of ways.
Yeah, yep, that definitely
I mean, the
has.
signage is annoying.
But we're taking them out of the right of ways, so.
But-
Right.
Well, I
You're not
think,
gonna
I
see
think
them.
of other communities. 2-3 weeks ago, I was up at Smith Mountain Lake. And you're out there Memorial
Well, no.
Day on the boat. Everybody's got huge banners, whichever side you're on. And that's all you see is,
It's temporary. They'll have a new one by.
So
Yeah,
I don't
that
think,
election's a long time
I
ago.
don't think that the council discussions contemplating rolling back
Private.
a private right that they
Yeah.
kind of have right now. I haven't heard that discussion. So my assumption is that that was not their intention.
Well,
Yeah.
if that's not their intention.
But if that's not their
strike D.
intention, you strike D.
So
but
I
maybe
think,
there's-
yeah, you're right. It's kind of up to them. It's either strike D
Or
or leave
modify
D and modify
136.
that one to say exclude political signs. And then it,
My impression of what their intention, so, was that they would strike A, would be what their intention was. To keep it the same on private property as it is today. That you can have it today for a presidential election. I think if that was if they recognized that that was built into the ordinances drafted, I think they would have addressed that.
So,
So we're gonna strike B.
It's-
Just the
it's for-
simplest.
So, in a election, a primary, there are multiple candidates you consider and vote for, referendums and things like that. So is this saying that I can only put one sign up in my yard, period?
I don't think we've ever read it that way. I think we've always read it to be, you cannot have any one sign larger than 8 square feet. That you might have a house identifying sign, you might have a American,
Well, I
ideal
want to
sign.
vote for the president. I want you to consider the congressman and the senator that might be all running at the same time in November.
Perhaps in
That's
sales.
my
But
concern.
wouldn't you want that taken down if you had all those signs in your yard, your personal yard? Wouldn't you enable them to go,
That's why I'm for D.
well, no, you can take them down. It's your property. They have to have permission to put them up. But if you want to market or if you want to, endorse a presidential candidate and everybody all the way down to, down the line, that's your choice. And how long do you want to leave them there? You don't want to leave them there any longer than they
I
have to
really,
be.
doesn't bother me. The ones in the right of way do bother me.
Well, that's it. I
And
mean,
that's
all they're
what
doing here is
D
saying
does.
no more in the right of way, period.
That's what D does. And
Um,
it's
but
very
that's what-
convoluted to find it in the rest of the ordinance.
So I do read it, I understand what you're saying, Sandy. I read it a little different because it gets to 54141 where it prohibited signs. And then it just goes down and it's very specific. So that's why I think B is a little more redundant.
So Sandy, would your kind of angst be fixed if 54136A was modified to include some of those,
Excluding political signs, yeah.
or what if you, because you like
As
D.
in C, as in SEE, whatever number this one is, D, yeah. 54138, 8, how does that go to 8D? No, D, yeah, that's it, there we go.
But Sandy, how would you feel about the person who has a presidential banner up now, 8 square feet? This gets enacted, code enforcement says, hey, you gotta take that down until 30 days prior to the election. I don't think that's the intent of what council is.
I don't really want that to happen, but, I think I don't know.
So I think what I'm hearing, you like the detail of D,
I do.
but I don't think that anybody is saying, I haven't heard anybody saying, yes, we want to keep signs out until the 30-day launch date. Which is what, if you keep D, that's what you're doing. If you keep D and modify 140 and say CD, that's what you're doing. It kind of sends the code enforcement guys out
Oh,
until
okay,
30 days
correct.
prior.
Yeah,
Which I
actually,
think
I
is-
don't really have a problem with that. So the signs that are out now would probably have to come down
Right.
until such time as there's an election.
But if it
Till
just
30
says,
They're kind of,
if it just says Trump, is that a campaign sign?
I think that's campaign.
Trump
sign.
for president is a
Campaign
campaign
sign.
sign.
well, what if you have somebody that's not running?
Well, that's exactly right. What if it, I don't know,
So,
who's
I
not
mean, if you
running?
wanted to put Haley for president
Right.
out there,
Well, that's a
Now, it's
campaign
not-
sign, but if you
That's a
just,
campaign sign.
but
if
it's
you
not
just said
tied to
Nikki
election.
Haley,
It's not,
because you're a fan, is that a campaign sign?
see, now we're
It's a
going
political
to-
sign.
I know, that's what I said, you're getting into this kind of.
Well, that's where I live.
Yeah.
That's where I live.
I could just,
I thought it was so simple.
I thought so too, that's why.
I know.
David,
That's why I
I
lost
just
the
drugged it, I
15-minute
just
bet.
broke the 45 days.
David
That's
had
the
to
council.
read the entire sign
I
code.
thought council is trying to limit what happens on private property. I think this is just the way it's written is a,
Take it out of the right of way.
I
Take it out of
believe,
the
they-
right
and
of way.
we're
Yeah.
trying to just get it out the right of way, which
Yeah.
is not legal
And
anyway.
they'll, you know,
So how
they'll-
we do that, but if we just say, leave it,
Take it out of the right of way.
right.
and you're limiting on private property, that's gonna become another problem, and they'll be like, oops, we didn't mean that.
I think
Right,
it'll,
that will.
it'll
Let's start
open up
over.
a can
Now
of
you gotta
worms.
ask permission from everybody. You know, Palm Boulevard, that's the far side of that sidewalk.
so I
No one's
think
gonna see them.
your point is to kind of clean it up, and I think that would go to David's suggestion, but you hang up on Sandy's point of, right now, there's explicit detail to the candidate. They know, if we don't do that, it's a little bit, it's a little bit obscured in the code. I don't know how many politicians, I don't know how many actually go to scrutinize our sign code. I think that there's probably a cut sheet somewhere. I don't know that. You all probably do know. That, these are the rules, A, B, and C, and that you're not actually pouring through code books.
You just see what's done in the past and continue it.
Yeah. So I don't know, Sandy, if this detail kind of spelled out in our code as it currently is ends up being truly useful to a political candidate. I don't know.
Can you ask council what their intent was and then give them our argument?
What is your, what is your
Well,
argument?
Let me
I mean,
say-
if their intent is not to limit, then
So I
he
will-
is out. But if their intent is to carry it further, then you can have Sandy's argument, because we're unclear on their
Yeah.
intent.
Yeah. well,
Definitely the inconsistency will be pointed out to them. Yeah,
Just leave it, throw it back into
What-
their
what-
court, 'cause
but
we don't
it doesn't,
know. It didn't originate with us.
and the way it kind of will work is you all have 30 days to provide a recommendation. If you don't do it within 30 days, it's deemed a recommendation for
What they sent us.
approval.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there would be kind of a legal time to go back and forth on it.
What,
So-
let me say something real quick, this may help. My thing really is, you focus right away, political campaign signs.
Yep.
If everything else were deleted and some sort of verbiage went to C, 54136A, and where's the
14,
other?
yeah, 514.
And
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, and so,
Oh, leave D, a reference in there.
so that, yes, because I
And
think
you're
that's
pointing them to the-
significant, because the rest of it's buried. To me, it's buried. Signs within a right-of-way, public beach access, including political signs promoting a candidate or party.
Are prohibited, period.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's already in there. That's,
yes.
No, I think we're adding that, aren't we?
well, we're adding that. So yeah, we're saying, you add
But
that.
I'm saying leave D, political campaign sign, C, as in SEE 54-136A, number
And-
14.
Okay, so you're saying cut that paragraph, but leave it political campaign.
And now you can have a
Yeah.
a Lex Sandy Stone 4x8 sheet of plywood in your front yard all day and into the night.
Okay, so you're
And you
not
can
saying
have
put a
your
time
house
limit on
called
Oh, okay.
Sandy Stone's Place.
Just so I'm clear, you're not, I'm sorry, you're not putting a time limit on it, right? You're just saying refer back to.
No,
D.
isn't that in here?
Well, there is, I thought you just said,
Though if you take everything else to D, there's no time limit.
right, okay. So you want a time limit on there, so now.
I don't really care. It's in your private property. Freedom
So
of
I think,
speech.
Sandy is saying, leave D in there purely as a placeholder and a direction to say, to
Yeah.
tell the candidate, read 54136A and read
14.
5414114, and then
Okay.
delete the rest. So
I-
it takes away,
Yes.
the time limit,
Mhm.
takes away the 2 days after cleanup. So you could, in effect, have your sign on your private property for as long as you want, which is is what I think was in
Yeah,
council's intention.
that kind of takes us past what your concern was with house names and
Yeah.
some of those things.
I think that sounds good.
So you're leaving the letter D and something that says political campaign signs, eliminating all the text that's after D to say, see this, that, and the other.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
so political campaign signs in accordance with 54136A.
And 5/141.
That's what I was trying
Well,
to.
that-
Yeah,
14.
54136A.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's going to reference you to those two sections.
It's going to reference you to the section that says they're not allowed, the right of ways.
Right.
Yeah,
You'll have to read between, it's going to say on your
Yeah.
private property,
yeah.
keep it 8 square feet, and then it's going to say, in the right of way, it's prohibited. I mean, I think,
That's all you're trying to do.
yeah.
All right.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Who made that motion?
I'll move that we do what I said.
Do what I said.
Do what Sandy said. I'll second that.
Amend section 54138D to say political campaign signs, and then a reference to sections 54136A, which would allow 8 square foot political signs on private property, and section 54141D, which would prohibit them in the right of way.
141, that's right.
Got it.
Did you get all that?
Yep.
That was Sandy's motion.
I think it's 54141.
14.
14, did I not say 14?
You said D.
D.
Oh, D, I'm stuck on D. A lot
Does
of
anybody
D
want to
talk.
second that motion?
I
Yes.
think Dave did.
Yeah,
Everybody? Got it.
Any further discussion?
not from Sandy.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Phew, there goes that 15-minute bet of mine.
Yeah.
Okay, so wrapping up, stormwater management.
Yep, so I would just give an update that this ordinance has now gone through committee. It's gone through the workshop. It's had first reading. It also will have a public hearing at the same time as the one preceding. It's been interesting, their kind of take on the text, and I think generally it's been appreciated and they've seen it as an improvement. One change was, if you recall, this group recommended to take out pools from when a stormwater plan is triggered. Kind of, Matt gave the example of somebody's building a 700 square foot pool. He then says, hey, that's over 625 square feet. You need to do all this plan. The comments back we get are, well, I'm building something that's actually going to hold water. Why would I need to make a plan for that? So this group recommended excluding pools specifically from triggering a plan. Council wanted to put that back in. It's in there now. I don't know that it's a great, and they, there were kind of examples given of, it might be 625 square feet, it might hold water, but it's humped up to shed water away. So they kind of had they had rationale and examples of why they thought that should happen. Also, a little bit of a hang-up on, if you recall, this group's recommendation was to allow properties, really low properties. Right now, it's only a foot above the road, so the example was given, if you have a really, really low road, it holds your lot elevation to a really low elevation that sometimes can be below a high tide, a spring tide line. This group, and it was a Davis and Floyd recommendation, was, okay, in the lowest of roads, you can still go to 7.2. And maybe it's just one council member has been hung up on a lot that's that low going up to 7.2. So that's kind of spurred some discussion, but the majority of council has held with y'all's recommendation on that. So that is kind of nearing the finish line, and I think I don't see any real problems with that getting enacted. And we're kind of internally making making plans to start administering it, how we're gonna calculate volumes and things like that, so that's progressing well.
Okay.
Very good.
I don't have anything else.
Yeah, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I have a question.
Oh,
Almost.
Sorry, it's my moral duty. So we took surveys about the connector screw-ups, and we continue to have problems in the connector, morbid problems. And that's before the summer really kicks in. And I'd like to know, whose responsibility is it to follow up on those surveys that we all took? We never heard the results. We did take a second survey because the first one was screwed up. I'd like to know what the plan of this town is to deal with the connector, which I sat there, tow truck coming up the bicycle and walkway, police cars, ambulances coming up the middle of the road. It was a shit show. And I think
It was
it's,
a mess.
I think something needs to be done
That's what I
about the
thought I
connector.
heard say.
oh, yeah.
So I can certainly distribute the survey results, and I'll kind of paraphrase what's happened since that survey. The survey basically indicated that this community favored 2 lanes exiting. The DOT took that and they kind of had a commitment to further investigate and conceptualize what that would look like, specifically in the tie-in points over Mount Pleasant. The town of Mount Pleasant was also included in that dialogue, and the town of Mount Pleasant basically said they didn't favor that plan. So the DOT, from my perspective, was in a little bit of a kind of caught between neighbors. And they have now, there's now a new secretary of the DOT. We met with them 2 weeks ago, and his report back to us was there is no change plan for the connector.
And they don't want to relook at having it go back to the way it was, which was
No.
a lot safer.
No, that option was that. I don't think that option was even favored by this community.
My concern, as I've expressed a number of times, is that we are creating a hostile environment for bicyclists, pedestrians, and more traffic than anything else. And I think we don't need 4 lanes for the 6 people that bicycle across that bridge a day in the summer or the winter. It's created a very, very unsatisfactory outcome for safety. And when I was asked the other day about it by someone who was involved with that crash, the family member, I said, sue the state. Don't sue Isle of Palms, which is where they wanted to go. But I think we need to get out in front of this thing again. I mean, we just turned it over to the Secretary of DOT, and she's an idiot.
Well, she's no longer there.
Well, her policies are still, we're living with them.
Yeah, I do think, that issue was, they were extremely, I guess, willing to work together with the city and the town of Mount Pleasant. They paid for studies, they had engineers study it, did the surveys, all of that was their work product. At the end of that project, does not appear that it's gonna yield any changes. But, they were very agreeable to analyzing it, looking at solutions. Again, from my personal perspective, had the town of Mount Pleasant had a plan bubbled up that had kind of universal appeal, I think that their position would be different, but with a divided, kind of 2 divided communities, I think that's where the momentum in that project stopped from my perspective.
Besides the fact that the wall is not to code.
Right?
They know that.
Not as a guardrail,
Right.
certainly.
Right.
So
Because
I-
you could, a walker could certainly walk off the side of the road, which you shouldn't be walking on the side of the road anyway. You know, just think about Awanda on Highway 17 and how many people get struck by cars on that road at dark at night, let alone riding a bike. And I guess that was all, that whole redesign of the bridge lane system was by the DOT, wasn't it?
Correct.
In the middle of the night.
So they were the ones who decided we needed bike riders, because you're gonna ride to the beach to alleviate traffic at 100-degree temperature to ride a bike.
I know where to put
Or
your.
walk.
And nowhere to put your, yeah.
So I don't know where we have to throw it, see where it sticks. I mean, is it safety committee or commission or?
Well, I mean, it's at the highest, it is a DOT bridge, and it has sat with the kind of highest authorities of the DOT for several years. I don't think there's anything that our public safety committee or, you know, anything other than some state level above the DOT pushing that down on them, which I just don't know that there's, again, with kind of two communities divided, I don't know what the.
Well, one of them has a
likelihood-
lot more votes than the other. That doesn't help us. And they're also, their people are the ones coming to our island, so. I don't feel any better about it.
Yeah, I know it didn't, that situation hasn't given a lot of people warm fuzzy feelings about the DOT or the bridge.
Did we have a motion to adjourn?
Almost.
Almost.
Go ahead.
So,
Motion to adjourn?
you have a second?
Quick, hurry.
Are you gonna first and seconds?